I'm Ruby Jones, and you're listening to 7am. Limb-lengthening surgery, where bones in your leg are broken, a rod inserted and extended, can be high risk, and is especially controversial when it's done for cosmetic reasons. The procedure is a specialty of the Florida-based Paley Institute, which now plans on opening an Australian arm. The centre is no stranger to controversy, and neither is the man they're partnering up with, the once celebrated surgeon Dr Munjed Al Muderis, who recently lost a defamation case against the 9 newspapers. Today, investigative reporter at The Age, Charlotte Grieve, on how she exposed Dr Munjed Al Muderis and what she's learned about his plans for the Paley Institute. It's Tuesday, December 2. Charlotte, thank you for speaking with me. You've been reporting on Munjed Al Muderis for a long time, so where did that start for you?
Yeah, so I first started looking into Munjed Al Muderis in 2022. The origin story for why I got there is kind of a personal story and the basis of the book that I'm about to publish called Duty to Warn. So my father is an amputee, and he went to a consultation with Dr. Al Muderis in 2018. And Dr. Al Muderis is famous for a particular type of surgery called osseointegration, which is for amputees and basically involves putting a titanium rod into the bone of the residual limb, which protrudes through the skin and connects to a prosthetic limb.
This gives an amputee a higher mechanical and functional capacity and a greater comfort compared to a cumbersome, archaic style of Captain Hook socket prosthesis.
Now, Dr. Al Muderis has performed the most of these surgeries than anyone on the planet, and our investigation ultimately revealed similar problems of over-operating, unnecessary surgeries and risks being minimised. But yeah, that story really started with my dad's experience and an uneasy feeling that he got when he went for a consultation back in 2018.
Right, so your dad had what sounds like an uneasy experience, which prompted you to look into this further. So how did you approach your reporting?
I started by reaching out to patients, to surgeons, and really just taking a sort of light touch approach, just asking open-ended questions to people about their experience, what they thought, how the promises matched reality of this surgery, which, you know, at its best can be a very miraculous surgery. It can help people walk who have been confined to a wheelchair for their life.
5 years down the track, after being in a wheelchair, he walked his dog every day, he played golf, that's in his backyard, by the way, and he has his life back.
But quickly what I discovered is that there was this underclass of patients who didn't have the miracle experience. And for them, when the surgery fails, it can go horribly, horribly wrong.
He's that good at talking that you think that he's going to be the one to fix all your problems. Well, no, he doesn't. Makes them worse, actually, for me.
Dr. Al Muderis would say, well, these are just complications of surgery. The patient said, we were never warned about this.
I actually didn't know what to do. I was just dumbfounded that this was happening. I'm like, I don't know what to do, actually, for the first time in my life. I don't know how to fix this. And I sent the video to Munjed straight away, and I never got a response from him.
And so it all boiled down to informed consent, and what we discovered is, in fact, no, they didn't know what they were signing up for. And behind that, there was a major profit motive for the surgeon to keep prescribing this particular procedure.
And so how did Al Muderis respond to your reporting?
So he responded by suing for defamation.
In 2022, an investigation by 60 Minutes, The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald revealed the dark side of his booming practice, finding Al Muderis' care was not up to scratch, that he downplayed the risks and used high-pressure sales tactics. Al Muderis claims Nine was running a malicious campaign against him.
He denied all the allegations against him. He branded all of his patients as liars. He labelled the surgeons and experts who spoke out against him as biased or trying to tear him down for financial reasons or jealousy reasons. And the end result was a 3-month trial. So it was the third longest defamation trial in Australian history. There were 35 patients and their family members who gave evidence for us. There were surgeons, experts, whistleblowers, all took to the stand and gave evidence about the truth of the allegations. It was a year-long wait for the judgment, and when the results came in, we won on all counts. So it was a good end. It was a good result, but certainly took a long way to get there.
And tell me a bit more about that judgment. What did the federal court decide?
So it was a very comprehensive judgment. It was 771 pages long, and essentially Justice Wendy Abraham found failures in Munjed Al Muderis' surgical practice from the very beginning of his interaction with patients. So the types of people he decided were appropriate to operate on, she found were often wrong. Then on the operating table itself, she found he made mistakes. Then in the aftercare, the post-operative care period, she found that he neglected patients when they needed him. So right across the full spectrum of his practice, she found he was negligent, unethical, and placed profits before people.
And so what does a finding like that mean for Al Muderis' capacity to work as a surgeon?
Well, strangely enough, the regulators, the HCCC in New South Wales and AHPRA, the National Healthcare Regulator, when the judgment first came out, they said, we're carefully reviewing this. But months later, there's been no update from either of those parties. For now, it seems that, there's no consequences for those findings in the federal court.
Coming up, the cosmetic limb-lengthening powerhouse set for Australian shores. Charlotte, despite the court ruling in your favour, Dr Munjed Al Muderis is still allowed to practice in Australia, and you've discovered that he has ties to a Florida-based medical tourism behemoth called the Paley Institute. So tell me about them. What do they do?
So the Paley Institute are known for selling what they brand as innovative surgeries. The surgery that it's most well known for is limb lengthening, which is a surgery that, as the name suggests, lengthens your limbs for either medical reasons or cosmetic reasons. On its website, its founder, Dr Paley, is described as a miracle man, a bone wizard. So he does the surgeries that many other surgeons refuse to do. How cosmetic limb lengthening works is you put rods into the bone, and those rods can be operated externally using magnets or remote controllers to move over a series of months. And what that does is it breaks the bones from the inside. And so over a period of months, your bones are sort of constantly breaking and healing to make it get longer. And the risks involved in that are that you can create nerve damage. There's always the ever-present risk of infection. You can create problems later on in your life in terms of arthritis. There's a full gamut of reasons. And I guess it's like any kind of cosmetic surgery, there are risks whenever you're going under the knife or whenever you're putting a foreign body into your body, there are risks there. But this is an irreversible and permanent surgery that can have serious consequences for people.
And you've uncovered some complaints about things that have potentially gone wrong in their US operations. Can you tell me a little about that?
What I found when I was investigating the Paley Institute is a couple of medical negligence claims that have been heard before the Florida courts this year. And there were 3 that I really homed in on. One was a 10-year-old girl who underwent surgery at the Paley Institute, and she alleged that she was left permanently disfigured, scarred, and injured. Another man died on the operating table during a complex spinal surgery. And the third was a 30-year-old man who underwent limb-lengthening surgery that went allegedly horribly wrong, and he had to have the surgery reversed, so he's suing as well. So while medical negligence cases aren't necessarily rare, what was common throughout all 3 of those cases was these allegations or patterns of unnecessary surgery, high-pressure sales tactics, and devastating consequences for patients.
Right, and these cases, they're still before the courts, so they're just claims at this point. But in the meantime, what have you found out about what exactly Dr Munjed Al Muderis' plans are for the Paley Institute here in Australia?
Yeah, so he wrote a letter to GPs earlier this year saying that his longer-term plan is to bring the Paley Institute to Sydney, Australia. We don't know what that would entail or how it would work. Macquarie Uni Hospital certainly said that they'd never heard of the plans. When I went to Dr Al Muderis and Draw Paley for comment, they simply didn't respond. So we have no real details around how it would work or what it would look like. But one thing I have noticed is that Dr Al Muderis earlier this year was promoting cosmetic limb lengthening in the media. There was a Mamma Mia article where he gave an interview and he said, cosmetic limb lengthening is really popular among women these days because giving examples such as, people who are shorter get bullied and women need to be taller for, jobs and to be considered for certain roles. So he was really taking a promotional approach earlier in the year, which seemed to me to be laying the groundwork for he wants to expand this practice in Australia. And all the surgeons I speak to have said cosmetic limb lengthening is way beyond their risk profile, and it's a high risk operation, and it's a cosmetic procedure. And the dominant thinking in Australia has been the risks outweigh the benefits. So if he does bring the Paley Institute to Australia, I'm sure we'll see a lot more of that surgery being offered to people of all ages.
But there is, I suppose, no legal reason that something like this couldn't go ahead or that Al Muderis couldn't practice, right? So how likely does it seem that this is going to materialise?
Exactly. I mean, Australian healthcare has been open for business, for foreign investment for a long time. We have major foreign companies owning large chunks of our private healthcare network. So there are very few checks and balances or roadblocks that would get in the way of something like this coming to Australia.
Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ruby.
Also in the news, Defence Minister Richard Marles has announced the largest reform to the Australian Defence Force in 50 years. 3 groups within Defence, the Capability Acquisition and Sustainment Group, the Naval Shipbuilding and Sustainment Group, and the Guided Weapons and Explosive Ordnance Group, are set to be rolled into one organisation. There will also be a dedicated agency to decide what projects to prioritise within Defence. While no job cuts are expected, Miles says the reform is designed to give taxpayers more bang for buck. And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formally asked Israel's President Isaac Herzog to grant him a pardon for bribery and fraud charges and an end to the corruption trial he faces. Netanyahu has argued that pardoning him would be in the national interest. Israel's presidential office has called it an extraordinary request with significant implications, which it will now consider. I'm Ruby Jones. This is 7am. Thanks for listening.